Today marked the first of 2 days of parliamentary hearings into Hockey Canada's handling of sexual assault allegations against players in 2018. The Minister of Sport says Hockey Canada officials must ask themselves if they are the right people to lead called for changes.
There are very serious questions that the leadership at Hockey Canada should ask themselves. If the people that were present in the past decade and in the past years and in the events of 2018 and how they managed the whole situations, are they really the right leaders to implement the change that hockey culture needs and to end the culture of silence in the organization?
The Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage heard from a number of witnesses today, including officials from Sport Canada, who testified they knew of the allegations of sexual assault back in 2018, but they didn't tell the minister at the time. The CBC's Marina von Stackelberg is in Ottawa, and she joins us now live. So, Marina, what details did we learn from Sport Canada at the hearings today?
Yeah, well, for one thing, that Sport Canada has known for 4 years about these allegations. They testified today at the committee that Hockey Canada came to them in 2018 with these allegations that a woman was alleging that she was sexually assaulted by 8 former hockey players at an event in London, Ontario. Now, we heard that they did not then tell the Minister of Sport at the time, and the next 2 Minister of Sports were not told either. Now, Sports Canada never followed up with Hockey Canada either. They knew that London police were looking into these allegations, but apparently they didn't know that London police had actually not laid charges and closed the investigation. Now, Sports Canada gives funding to Hockey Canada, about $14 million over the last 2 years, and they only pulled their funding in June. And so MPs questioned Sport Canada why they waited so long to pull funding when they knew of these allegations. They said that they assumed the investigations were ongoing, that Hockey Canada had not given them an update on the fact that London police had not followed through on an investigation. And they said that they also had as a policy that they would not be pulling funding from organizations if there were allegations, because they want these sport organizations to look into the allegations and not cover it up over fear that they might lose funding. Now, they also said that it was not their job to investigate these allegations, but rather to follow through with the sport organizations and make sure that they were doing their due diligence. They also sort of have to follow up on actually what they have said. And they said that the onus was on Hockey Canada to report to them.
Right. Okay. So we heard from the officials. We heard from Minister Pascal St-Onge. She'll be up in just a minute. We also heard from a third-party investigator from the law firm Hennon Hutchinson that testified as well today. What did we learn from her as it relates to this investigation?
Yeah, so Danielle Robitaille was commissioned by Hockey Canada, paid by Hockey Canada 4 years ago in 2018. She was phoned by the top brass of Hockey Canada asking what they should do. She suggested to them that they phone the police, and then she was paid to start an investigation into this, to look into the allegations, as she says, to find the truth to what these allegations were, and to also provide recommendations. Now, she said she spent about 18 months doing that investigation, interviewed about half the hockey players in the alleged incident, as well as coaches and staff, but she stopped after about 18 months because the complainant did not want to give a statement. So now the complainant is willing to give a statement. She says she's restarted that investigation. She said today to the committee that she is laser focused on that. And unlike last time, all of the hockey players are going to be required to participate in this investigation. She says otherwise, Hockey Canada will make their names public and they will be banned from playing hockey with Hockey Canada for the rest of their lives. David. Okay,
Marina, thank you so much. This is CBC's Marina von Stackelberg. Now, as Marina just said, a lot of people testified at the committee today, including Pascal St-Onge, the Minister of Sport. She's in Ottawa tonight. Minister, I'd like to start in 2018, if I could, with what Sport Canada officials knew, that there was an allegation of sexual assault tied to Hockey Canada, but they never followed up with Hockey Canada and they didn't inform the Minister of the day about what they knew. Is that acceptable from Sport Canada?
Well, back in 2018, there was a new process put in place by my predecessor, Christy Duncan, who had made a priority of building new tools and putting the safety of athletes at the forefront of everything because of numerous stories that we've heard about in the media in the past decade. So it was a new process. The obligation that the sports organization had was to report those allegations or the cases that were upcoming, and what Sport Canada would do is make sure that those cases were referred to the appropriate authorities. In this case, in the case of the alleged sexual assault, there were no details given to Sport Canada. It was just alleged sexual assault. And Hockey Canada has said that they had reported the event and the allegations to the police, the local police. So there was an ongoing police investigation.
Right, but Minister, surely an organization as important to your department as Hockey Canada warrants follow-up by Sport Canada and notification to the Minister's office, because I'm presuming they got funding in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. And nobody warned the minister and nobody checked to see if Hockey Canada was doing the right thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, they reported that they called the local police and that they hired a third party to investigate also on the events. Everybody was waiting for the result of those two investigations, and it was a surprise to everyone when the story came out on TSN in May 2022. So, of course, we are going to evaluate the tools that not Hockey Canada, but Sport Canada has right now to follow up on such cases. We're also, like I've said before, I'm going to revise the whole funding system to make sure that the organizations are accountable for what happens in their own organization and their governance and the way that they manage those cases.
But a key word you used there was waiting, that for 4 years, it seems, Sport Canada was waiting for an update. Did nobody pick up the phone and call Hockey Canada and check and see if things had developed to the point that the minister should be informed that there was a sex crimes investigation happening at one of our most important sports organizations?
Mm-hmm. It was said today that no follow-ups were done by Sport Canada, and of course, this is something that we're going to revise. In my opinion, there should be follow-ups for such cases, and we're going to work with Sport Canada to make sure that they have the appropriate tools to do those follow-ups with the sport organizations. This is, before 2018, nothing existed at Sport Canada to treat those cases. And because it was such a priority for our government, because of all the stories about the safety of athletes, to improve the system and also hold national sport organizations and everyone that's being funded by the federal government to account and to do more to prevent those events from happening and to follow up when such things happen. There's been a lot of work done by the government since 2018, and it brought us to June 20th of this year, when the new Office of the Sport Integrity Commissioner was launched with the nomination of Sarah F. Pelletier. So now there's also in the Canadian sports system a place where athletes can turn to for cases of abuse or maltreatment in the sports system that can be assessed by professional and by an independent mechanism.
But Minister, in these cases that we've heard about, the allegations involving Hockey Canada, the athletes are not the ones who are being abused. It's young women who are being abused that may not be part of the sports structure whatsoever without knowing the identities and particulars of these allegations. And I know there was no structure there for Sport Canada, but there was the judgment of the senior leadership. And given their lack of follow-up and what strikes me as a basic failure to inform the minister's office that something this significant was being investigated, I mean, do you still trust the judgment of the leadership of Sport Canada based on everything we've heard over the last couple of weeks?
I think that we need to improve the processes at Sport Canada, and that we need to empower Sport Canada to do those follow-ups and to have better processes in place to inform the minister so that we can make proper decision when it's time to agree to funding the organization. So there is still a lot of work to do. And like I said before, the sports system is in crisis, and everybody in a leadership position needs to do more and needs to step up. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been doing since I've been nominated. And those are the standards that I expect from everybody in the sports system.
You say the leadership needs to step up. Do some of them need to step out? I mean, when you look at Hockey Canada, you said today that Hockey Canada leadership needs to take a hard look in the mirror. Do you have confidence in the leadership of Hockey Canada to lead the organization through this process and reform it as needed?
I think that the leadership at Hockey Canada needs to explain to the Canadian population how the same people that were in place in 2018 and in the previous stories that we've heard, and the same people that have managed pretty badly those stories in the past, how are they the right people to implement the action plan and all their intentions that they're communicating these days to the Canadian population about changing the masculine toxicity amongst the organization, or the culture of silence, or how they educate and make more prevention about sexual violence. So I still need to hear how these people that are the same people that were there in the past are the right people to implement those changes. The other question that I have for the leadership at Hockey Canada is there enough representation on their leaders board, on the directors board, or on the committee? Is there enough women? Is there enough diversity? And if we're talking about sexual violence, I think that the voice of women is really important around the table of decision. So I'm expecting a lot of good questions and a lot of transparency and frankness with the answers that Hockey Canada is going to give to the Heritage Committee.
Right, so it sounds to me like you still need to be convinced that the Hockey Canada's leadership are the right people to stay there. You're not 100% on board with them just yet, is that correct?
I think that they need to prove that they're the right people. So it's not just words that we're expecting, it's clear action, clear and definitive action, and explanation about how they are going to, make that change in their sport culture. And I'm calling, yes, on sexual violence, but violence in general, how they've managed fighting on the ice, and other issues that have been brought up by athletes and by the Canadian public for years. This is an entire culture that needs to be evaluated, and how those kids, how those young men are brought up in this sports system, and how we end up with stories such as the ones in 2003 and 20.
So you've seen Hockey Canada's plan to fix things. I wonder what you make of the fact that this plan is only being developed and only being released after weeks of negative public exposure. You've cut off their funding, and corporate sponsors are pulling the plug on supporting Hockey Canada. I mean, what do you make of the fact that they're only addressing this now that they're in a full-fledged crisis of culture here?
Well, it can be just a public relation operation. And so far, I need to see also how much resources is going to be put into this action plan, how they're going to implement it, and who is going to do that. And do they have the expertise and the capacity with the people that are in place right now on the directors board to do this? Very important work. And, it's not the first time that we have reports, that we have action plan, that we have empty promises from this organization. What we learned from the past few years is that a lot of the promises that were made were never actually achieved through the organization. And I want to take time to salute the letter that the feminine team, the women's team wrote, and how they want to be involved in this process. I think that this is necessary to make place for women in this action plan.
I have one last question for you before we go. In less than a month, Canada is supposed to host the World Junior Championships. What changes need to be made between now and then that you would be comfortable with that tournament going ahead, given the nature of the allegations Hockey Canada is dealing with?
Well, first of all, I have a message for the young men that are going to participate in this tournament. And I want them to understand that what happened or what allegedly happened in 2003 and in 2018 is just not acceptable. And those young men need to understand that they have to show respect to the Canadian public and the people that are going to encourage them and that are going to cheer for them during this tournament, and also to all women. They need to show respect and proper behavior. And I hope that the message is clear that what happened can no longer happen. And I really hope that Hockey Canada takes the appropriate actions to make sure that whether it's during the tournament or after, during the celebrations, that there's very strict rules in place and supervision also to make sure that the public is well protected from the actions of some young men.
Okay, Minister St-Onge, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.